Gonna get started. Okay, everyone. Recording. All right. Okay, everyone. Welcome to our fifth Dean's Digital Cafe of Spring 2024. I'm William Letzu, assistant professor of biological and chemical sciences at the College of Arts and Sciences at New York Tech. So, on behalf of Dean Quigley, I'd like to thank you all for coming today and for tuning in today's event. I'd like to remind everyone that today's talk is being recorded and that we'll be taking questions following the presentation, but you should feel free to enter questions or comments into the chat at any time. And I'd like to invite you to join our Dean's Digital Cafe Canvas course via the link I just posted in the chat, where you can watch recordings of today's and past events. So before introducing Dr. Papadopoulou, I'd like to acknowledge the land. The Long Island campus of New York Tech sits on a larger territory known as Pominoke, which was home to numerous indigenous communities, including the local tribes, the Mattincocks and the Merricks. I'd like to acknowledge the land, the stewardship, and sovereignty of the Native peoples and their enduring importance, even in this virtual environment, to our working community here today. Okay, and with that, I'm now pleased to introduce today's speaker. Athina Papadopoulou joined New York Tech in 2022 and is now an assistant professor of architecture, health, and design at NYIT. She's, excuse me, sorry. She's co-director of the Regenerative Material Environments for Media and Interactive Applications, or the Remedial Lab, and head of the Affective Matter Research Group. Athina's recent research focuses on programmable material environments that enhance health and well-being through sensory interaction. In her work, she uses digital, physical, material, and affective computing to create augmented perceptual and human material interaction systems. Athina received a Master's of Science and a Doctorate of Philosophy in Design Computation with a minor in Human Computer Interactions from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where she was a presidential of Vergertes and a Leon Heisen Fellow. In addition to being a researcher at the MIT Computational Making Group and the MIT Self-Assembly Lab. So before receiving her PhD and MS from MIT, Athina received a doctorate, a diploma in architectural engineering, and a postgraduate master's in design culture from the National Technical University of Athens in Greece. In addition, she is a registered architect in Greece, where she worked at her own and others' firms before focusing her career on design and technology research. Athina's work on self-assembling systems, 3 and 4D printing, and wearable devices has been published in science and design journals, including Nature, Cognitive Science, and Architectural Design, as well as in computation and human-computer interaction conferences. So, welcome, Athina. We're excited to learn more about just what is affective matter and how it can enhance our well-being.
Thank you so much, William. I'd like to thank you so much for this invitation. It's a great opportunity to connect with other schools and really kind of engage the broader NYIT community.
Very welcome. We're very glad to have you. You're our first non-CAS speaker, so we're very happy.
All right. I hope I won't disappoint you on that. I put a couple of different projects, but let me share.
Yeah, I think I just gave you permission, so there you go. So Athina, is it still working?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, you froze and it came back. Okay.
All right, I'm at school, so it shouldn't be really. You need to enable the
on your new version view. Sorry. There we go. Okay, how about now?
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Take your time. Okay.
I don't know. I shouldn't have issues like that. I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on.
That's okay. Is it not letting you share?
Can you see my my screen?
Just see you right now. There we go. Okay, it started sharing. Okay, there we go. I think it's working.
All right. Let me know if it goes off at some point. Like, I don't know why it's behaving weird today.
That's okay. Well, we can
But
see it right now, so looks
yes.
okay.
All right. So yes, thank you again. So as William mentioned, I'm assistant professor in architecture, health, and design. I'm the second year at New York Tech, and we recently started a research lab in the health and design called Revidia Lab. And within that, I kind of have defined my own research group as I work a lot with the graduate students and also undergrads for my for my research. And today, I'm going to show you a couple of different projects under this overall theme of effective matter and inclusive computation. As you see here in the first slide, there's a lot of my work is on material interactions and experiences. So it's like a really template on kind of and a lot of hands. This is my hand. So it's also a lot about how materials affect our senses and how we can use materials and technologies to enhance our health through design. So what do I mean by affective matter and inclusive computation? So material environments affect our health and well-being, both in terms of the quality of the environment, but also the material properties, sound, atmospheric, light qualities. All of these affect our health. So I'm interested in how we design material environments to kind of modulate our emotions and behavior to enhance health. And inclusive computation, I'm interested into how we can use technologies to make products and environments accessible to individuals with disabilities, either physical or mental. So that's the areas I'm working on, and actually these are interrelated. So I'll start from like a lot of interest like in engaging in more in the body, and the senses come in fact from my discipline of architecture. Like in our education, there's a lot of emphasis on form and how things look and aesthetics. And often we tend to overlook other qualities like tactual aspect, sound, and so on. But by doing so, we tend to exclude other people that might be neurodiverse or having disabilities, right? So what if someone is blind? So one project I wanna start with is one I did at MIT a couple of years ago. That was part of my graduate studies. So I wanted to see how we can develop wearables that will allow us to kind of document space, not in terms of like how buildings look or in terms of how like materials are measured or like the engineering qualities, the strength of materials, but actually how like they make us feel, and how do we experience them through our different senses. But because in architecture we can't, how do you really talk about, you can't really visualize something that's kind of non-material. So I came up with this wearable that had embedded sensors, and they would allow you to walk through buildings and experience them while would you kind of track your body movement in space. So this is also a precedent for this research is perhaps many of you have heard of Maria Montessori. She was a pioneer in education in the beginning of the 20th century. So now there's a lot of Montessori schools, even if you have young kids or siblings. So what Montessori did see was saying that to really kind of learn better the environment and appreciate, like, have like better kind of sharper skills, we need to train our senses. So she could design sensory materials and really isolate, like have this, as you see, these kids are blindfolded, so isolate each of the senses separately, so to really focus in the sensorial properties of the environment. So I made this wearable that had a camera, it had sensors for proximity, it had sensors others on the body for accelerometer and to kind of locate the position. And so I made an experiment. I made this study with participants, and actually I made like a little like a narrative because I was telling participants to wear this and pretend that this is a creature of another kind that like experiences the world only through one sense. And that was my translation from the Montessori method to architecture. What happens if we focus on one sense when we experience space, right? Are we gonna really kind of understand better how people with disabilities, like focusing on other senses experience? Are we gonna become more sensitive to this? So I said like this narrative, like you have a creature from outer space that has only one sense, either like vision, touch, or sound, and you should experience this space for 10 minutes and convey to this creature the experience, the spatial experience. So I created this group of people, and each one was given the same device, that was given this narrative that is like a creature. Of course, everyone knew it's not a creature, but like you engage in this kind of narrative game. And it was in 2 buildings at MIT, I did that. So here you see the participants walking. This is a famous chapel at MIT, famous for its architecture. And you can see the people wearing the wearable and really is interacting with the elements in kind of unconventional way. So this is the altar, right? So you never go and play with a kind of sculpture in the altar, but like this became kind of musical and really engaged, kind of brought forth different affordances. And when we talk about affordances in design engineering, we mean that like different type of interactions, right, that you usually do. So you see this other participant walking in this other kind of building and exploring with this wearable. There were also participants that would, to convey the spatial experience, would run around the space and kind of knock the materials to create the acoustic experience. They would kind of touch with their hand to convey the textures and so. And it was like a really kind of a multi-sensory. So this kind of altar became like an instrument and so. And the result of this study was one template I don't have here, that like I asked them kind of to note manually, like where they felt their emotions in the space, different emotions during the trajectory, but also that was the direct computational output of this tool. So basically the line depicts the trajectory of the space, of the person in the space. And like when you see the kind of bigger circles, is like the moments of pause, like the longer they paused in certain areas, you see a bigger circle, and then the white circles are like the sound volume, and then the lines are kind of the tactile interaction. And this is like very, very rudimental and basic. And it was this kind of architectural like kind of idea I got obsessed with, to have like this sensory imprint, like a sensory sketch, like of something like unseen. And then you'd see here like interacting with a space using this wearable, like that kind of, it brought forth new awareness of the materials as well. So kind of by knocking the materials, you understand what the materials are, if they're like fake, if they're plaster instead of marble, and so on. So that also inspired a class I taught in the past, where like following this this study, where actually we had like students from different departments, And so we asked them we wanted to motivate them again to see space through kind of experience, right? And so but we wanted to make it more fun and experimental. And so we said, like, why don't you design your own creature? So like with 3D printing, electronics and so on, and come up with a story about how this creature experiences the world, and have this creature in different spaces and kind of capture with sensors certain qualities. So for example, you see the girl, one student at the bottom, she designed this thing called plant animal that it would turn the head towards the light, and it would be happier when there's like more humidity in the environment. And there was this other creature down right where it was like a sound creature that it would be timid and go away from sound. Then on the bottom, you see this wearable with a tape. Like this was a student that she was a dancer, and she had this idea of creating this creature called the color bee. And like she had these motors. So like depending on the color that could be detected in the environment, different motor would vibrate to kind of prompt her to move in center direction. So it kind of created like a dance in space. And then they were able to kind of use the sensors to bring data into processing software and kind of bring this kind of a visual image of the space, but like of other than vision qualities. So see, this is the sound creature goes away from the sound. And these are all undergrad students, so it was really fun. This is the plant animal, and this is like the and for me, this class also it was about to talk about education. It is fun, like how people react to this, right? It was like I wanted to teach the students also, electronics and making, right? But it was a fun way to do this. So do you see that this student is like with its color bead and like she kind of tests like colors in a grocery store, and then she goes in this other room, and based on like each color, so like touching the detecting the red one would vibrate to go left, detecting blue to go right, and she was also dancing. I mean, so she made this kind of semi improvisational performance. And this is the output of one of the sound creatures. So they did this capture in different spaces. Of course, we're also interested as a design school, right, in the artistic quality of the result. But this is a rule-based. So this is like it's captured based on the movement of the little robot, and how big these circles were related to the sound volume. And so each of the spaces that were explored had a different, like let's say, generative, imprint. So these are this is work of the students in that. So in a more like pragmatic way, like I started like become interested. Okay, aside from the exploration and making and learning, how can we actually help people? So this was a class I taught at MIT. That was before joining us here at MIT, where we worked with Perkins School for the Blind. And this is a famous school in Massachusetts. And it has this amazing building. That this is the team, me and my co-instructor, like the Perkins president and the students that took the class. The Perkins School is amazing because like that you might not, so architects are usually not taught this way, like we taught, designing for neurotypical people and like, and so on, and with all the typical abilities. But this was designed for blind people, and you can see kind of the different heights of the ceilings, right? That's because it's designed to experience through sound. So like when you walk in the building, you can orient yourself just by hearing around. And it's an amazing design because you see design of architecture, so totally different principles. Also, the textures of the walls would be different based on the section and organization of the school. So for us, it was a great educational experience because students got to kind of understand how to design and respond to their needs. So what we did is we went there and we talked to the teachers, we talked to students and specialists to understand what are the problems and design solutions through design, computation, and materials. So this is the project one of the students designed where it's actually an interactive interface, and it depicts like the plan. It's like the plan of the cafeteria of the school, and it responds to the problem of like which we couldn't imagine, right? So they told us like the students told us themselves like when they go to the cafeteria, they don't know where their friend is sitting, right? If you're blind, you don't know if your friend is there and where it's sitting. So they actually designed this interface where by depending on your where your friend is sitting, it would kind of vibrate or light up. And then you see here experimenting. Another student designed this carpet to translate dance into vibration. So she was identifying the problem of like, how do blind people experience, you know, like going to the theater, like seeing like a dance performance. So she designed this interactive carpet where the steps of the dancer would be translated wirelessly into this interface, and you could touch with your hand the vibrations, like a sort of translation. And that was another project on kind of using material fabrication to create an organizational method through different tactile elements that will allow the blind people to understand, like based on the texture, how to organize their office items, because that was another problem they told us they had there. And here you see how they kind of explore it and evaluate it. I can put this short video here if you want to see the
really very exciting opportunity for us.
Okay, we don't need to see that. So on the same line, I was excited that we continue this this area here at like NYIT, like in the health and design program. We do a lot of work with disabilities and kind of design innovation. So last year, we had the chance to participate, the great opportunity to participate in this big exhibition, Biennale di Venezia in Venice, with our students. So we had the research group, and we worked together in creating this installation. We try to tackle again kind of this idea of like, you know, kind of challenging the notion of the typical user with a typical body. Like in architecture, like we tend to, what we design are like, you know, the doors, the furniture, the sizes. They're all based on like of guidelines on how the typical body is and how it measures. And through the history, it has also been idealized in a way because all the kinds of typical measurements are based on its typical body, right? But in the fact, like the body is like can be very different. Like you could be in a wheelchair, you can be short, you can be like big, you can be big in like, you know, on size and on you can, you know, missing a limb or so. And so we wanted to be kind of provocative by taking these kind of stereotypical figures in architecture. You might not know, but it's like a Vitruvian figure. So it's like through the history, some supposed measures, and making this interactive application where the visitors in the exhibition, it would capture through a camera the actual body size of the visitors. And then it would scale down the kind of these classical designs of the Palladian villas, which is very known classical designs, to create this provocation, right? So what if, you know, instead of having this architect having designed through these ideal proportions, use kind of these various proportions And you see here, you can see how the students worked on identifying these, through softwares like with, body and motion recognition. Here with the face when they were experimenting on these capturing elements. So this is and this is the video of the drawing machine. So basically, we had in this installation, we had the plan behind of this classical building, and then we had in front this camera capturing the proportions, and then there would be drawings based on the different kind of visitor. And so now I want to go into a little bit more sciencey work, maybe, let's say, and maybe more relevant to you, as I guess more of you are like in bio, many of you are in biology. So this work started in my PhD dissertation and continues now in a way that I'm going to explain later. So affective matter, basically the way I had defined it is material that can affect and modulate and communicate our emotions. And basically, I devised it as a method that you can help using materials to regulate your own anxiety and emotions or communicate with others through these materials. And the way this happens is that, basically, when we experience an emotion, it's not only like a state of mind, right? We also experience it in our body. We experience it by being, when we're stressed, we might have like increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, we might sweat. So there's those bodily functions of emotions that are expressed physiologically. And if we think of many people that have anxiety or trauma or these kind of conditions, they don't even connect. Sometimes they don't connect the physical sensation with, what it means, what kind of emotion is it. There's this body-mind disconnect. So the idea was like, what if we create a wearable environment that can detect such physiology signals and then use material feedback to modulate it. So because it's known that somatosensory feedback in terms of deep pressure and also breathing regulation can help modulate and regulate our arousal, right? So we can have, we can help us like calm down, or can help us kind of even like induce stress, kind of like be more alert through this kind of sensory feedback. And of course, this is a connection to architecture for me, because that's where I come from. We do all these rituals like in our everyday lives, right? Our environments impact our mood and health, like just by sunbathing on the beach or being kind of in a warm bathtub, massage, or this kind of physical sensations from the environment or through connecting with thoughts, and so can be transferred through materials. So that was one inspiration. And the other one, which is a principle in the design, is the idea of entrainment and how we synchronize our rhythms with others. So, newborns regulate their heart rate through the heart rate of the mother, right? So there's that. And when we, if you see like a dance performance, dancers kind of synchronize their movement with the others. The same with music, we tend to kind of entrain, synchronize with a bit of the music when we play music, when we dance, and so on. So this idea of entrainment, we train to the light, we change our biorhythms based on the light as well, could be transferred to material. So that was my idea, that like making programmable materials that can change the rhythm based on certain pace could help regulate these. So this is like a very preliminary studies on how to make the materials programmable to induce the sensory action. So this, I was experimenting with shape memory alloys. This is a type of a needle wire. When current passes through, it heats up, but also changes shape. So I ended up designing this sleeve that has different cuffs of this nickel wire. When they heat up, they change shape. And by changing shape, you know, these cuffs open up and close, so they create this a feeling of touch. So this is the close-up of that sleeve. So they made a study with a hypothesis that slow and fast rhythmic haptic action of this affective sleeve can decrease and increase, respectively, participants' symptoms of stress. So I wanted to see if indeed we can synchronize with the rhythm of this haptic sleeve, and if it can help us regulate stress. So here we see the study. I designed a study with participants that they had to take a test to induce stress. So first they had this baseline with a relaxing documentary, and then they did a quiz for 10 minutes where we told them to do very well in the spatial cognition, and we told them to do as many questions as possible, but there were too many, so they were, you know, not able to complete, and that was intended to induce stress. And then we actually, after that, we had questionnaires, and we had participants wearing a breathing rate sensor and a skin conductance sensor. For those who don't know, skin conductance is how much the skin sweats. And we had the participants, we had a group that had a slow pace action and one that had a fast, so faster than the regular breathing rate or slower. Yeah, I have it here more explained. So we had the control group that they were wearing the sleeve but was not doing anything. We had one that had the sleeve going in a slow pace and one that had the sleeve in a fast pace. So what we saw in the end was that this is the skin conductance, that the ones that were wearing the sleeve in a slow pace, they actually had less arousal, less skin conductance arousal than the fast group. You know, the slow was lower than the control, and the fast higher, which is what we wanted to see. In the breathing rate, the fast group, there was a positive correlation between the speed of the haptic action of the sleeve, how fast it was actuating, as opposed to, and kind of, so the faster the sleeve was actuating, like providing this haptic pressure, the faster was the breathing rate. And here we can see actually how the what I mean by kind of sequential. So it was kind of actuating from the wrist to up.
Okay.
So then so this study showed like that there is this, you know, potential to use this kind of wearable environment to a wearable sleeve to regulate breathing, and with that to reduce stress. Actually, when we asked participants in the study also if they would if the experience were relaxing and so on, the ones that were wearing the sleeve in a slow pace, they said they were more relaxing. So there's other components in the study that I'm not showing here that made us come to the conclusion that, yeah, this has potential to actually be impactful. So, and then I redesigned this. This is a newer research where I redesigned this on being pneumatic. And that's because the materials I used before with the same memory alloys actually are not, are not as strong. Whereas with the pneumatic, and you see here how it is connected, it's really much stronger when you use it. So I did another study. This time I was using this wearable pneumatic, and I would use a breathing sensor again, and skin conductance sensor, and use the pneumatic sleeve. And then I would have self-reports where participants would experiment on different conditions of the sleeve, some being faster, some being slower, some having heat, some not having heat, and evaluating how they feel about it, just that, with no test. More like as an affective repertoire to help me understand whether there are certain conditions that makes us more relaxed, or certain conditions make us more stressed, and so on. And also by doing that, it would help me understand if we could use it also in the sort of in communication, right? So like if certain haptic actions have certain affective connections. So these are the conditions. I tested like 7 conditions, and again I had this haptic action from the wrist to the elbow in different type of, either like with heat or without heat, or I had a pattern that like the whole sleeve would create this pressure as opposed to localized. So, so this study, which is again, I had 36 participants, and they had this pneumatic sleeve, and they took these 7 conditions, and I had again like a control group, a slow group, and a fast group. And I was expecting to see that the breathing would have a positive correlation with the pace of haptic action. And these are the results of the study, where we see that in the green, there was an increase in breathing rates in the group that had the sleeve that had the fast pace, as opposed to the blue, which shows a decrease in breathing rate. And the regular was somewhat in the middle. So, and then you could ask, what does the breathing rate have to do with anxiety and stress? So studies have shown that slower breathing is related to kind of more calm states as opposed to faster. And I had additional measures as well that I have a note included here to show. Another measurement I did was having this affective circumflex. So during the study, I had questionnaires asking participants how much excited they felt from 1 to 10, happy, serene, calm, tired, sad, distressed, or tense. And then I used these affective maps to be able to compare between participants and between groups. This is the affective circumflex. Is a method in psychology to evaluate emotions, and it's based on this 2-axis model of activation and arousal. So based on this model, any emotion, which emotion is not the right word, like any affective state, can be mapped in this 2-axis model, right? So happy, we are more positive. We are more positive when we're happy and more aroused. When we are calm, we are happy and less aroused. So that's the deactivation. When we are tired, is less aroused and kind of negative. So everything is mapped in this map. So I wanted to see how the mapping would happen based on the subjective evaluations of participants aside the physiology sensors that I used. And here we see the result of the superimposition. For example, after receiving every evaluation, I would see superimposed to see the comparison. And so here we see in the group of the people that were wearing the sleeve that was had this haptic action slower than their baseline relaxed breathing rate. You see that this affective map is kind of gravitating towards like down right. So it means that in the slow group, people were feeling kind of less arousal and more positive. So they had this relaxed attitude. And in the regular group, which is like the action of the sleeve, that this haptic feedback was, the same as the regular breathing. They were kind of neutral because this is very symmetric. And then in the fast group, we see that it's more like a little bit up, right? Which is that they were more activated, more excited. So after this, I'm gonna show after how I continue this research. But basically, I also got very excited about this affective mapping, and I thought to develop this application. So this is like a research project I'm doing now with some research assistants at New York Tech, and basically the idea, and the research assistants, it's exciting, they're from different departments. So we did like UI, UX, like computer science and design. So what if, I was thinking like, what if we find a tool that we're able to kind of map our affective experiences for any kind of reason, like could be a study we're doing, could be evaluating of a product, could be useful for occupational therapists, for example, how to evaluate their clients and patients. And it could be based on this kind of affective map. So the idea was that we could make this wheel, this interface with these different kind of affective states, and you're able to go as a user in and like manually put like how much you feel of each of these kind of dimensions in this multidimensional model, and be able by that to kind of compare experiences, or if you're an administrator of this software, be able to store and evaluate like your clients and so on. So this is live, not live, it's a demo recorded. It's going a little, so I should have make it like faster, but so you log in there, and then we have a database. This is the current state of the prototype, a database of the recordings, and then you're able to go in there and like select a new. Here you have like these sliders where you can kind of do the affective mapping. I'm trying to like go faster, but then. And here you see how like there's a database and all the possible affective states, like you can print them, you can view them. This video didn't come out great. Let me try it once again. That's a little better. So we can see here all the states, and then you can like go in and put like graphic, and you can compare different affective states that are stored per user. And you have all these different users. You can select different filters and kind of filter out like what parameters you want to compare. And this is really came up as a inspiration, like while talking to Dr. Lopez that we collaborate now for a project. And he was like, he saw this element of my previous project, and he said, oh, that would be great if we had a tool like that we can use, that is visual and can give input for our kids with autism and like be useful to their parents. So yeah, this is going a little slow, but so I can move up to the other. So I wanna now talk now about a project I'm currently working, which is based on this the affective sleeve. So we got ISRC grant as I got as a principal investigator, and with COPI Alexander Lopez for the School of Health Professions. And the project is called Therapeutic Affective Garments. And we received the grant for, we got the 2023 grant. And the project is like, how do you make wearable garments that can help regulate the affective state and increase the performance of individuals with autism, especially kids. We have a project team that is comprised of like design students, computer science students, and OT students. And here you can see this, the problem we're trying to tackle, right? So kids with autism, they often have this sensory overload issue. So they get this over arousal due to kind of sensory input, but also it could be the opposite. They could be hyperaroused. So how do you, so we're thinking like if we have a wearable that helps through sensory feedback modulate this arousal, then it can help regulate their emotion and also help them have better performance in cognitive tasks. So these are the hypotheses that we have for the study that we got approved now by IRB, and we are about to start. So again, the first hypothesis is the same thing I had for the previous studies, but we want specifically to study that for individuals with autism, right? So there is a positive correlation between the rhythm of haptic feedback and breathing. But also we make this other hypothesis that individuals that are hypoaroused as a sensory profile, that they don't react in sensory input that they should, they will benefit from this kind of arousal regulation being more activated with the sleep and perform better in cognitive tasks, as opposed to individuals that are hyperaroused and will perform better in this kind of calming mode. So basically, it's not only kind of the effect of being distressed that is useful or calming, it could be other way. And actually because I've learned a lot and talked to occupational therapists while doing this study, these studies like these years, they have this kind of concept that's called like a sensory bank or sensory diet. We're trying to modulate arousal through kind of activities like the trampoline or this or that. So this is kind of like a wearable design version. And the other thing that motivated me to use this for kind of health conditions is that there is this thing that like occupational therapy used like is the weighted vests. So this is like a common thing in the market. But these weighted vests that are just like a heavier vest that help calm you down, they're not like individualized. They're not like made smart to respond to your bodily needs. It's just like one type of garment. And what we're trying to do is like doing kind of this smart biodynamic garment, which is only going to give you happy feedback when you need it. And it's also going to be kind of designed based on the individual needs. So we've now starting a study where it's going to have around 3 weeks and have again 3 groups: a fast, slow, and control, similar way with they studied it before. But for the needs of this study, what we're going to have is these kids with autism and young adults wearing the sleeve while they take these cognitive tests that are more like quizzes on the computer. So there's going to be a card sorting test, like a block tapping test, go, no go. So this sensory simulation test that sometimes they use for measuring cognitive abilities. And we're gonna test how they perform in the fast condition, in the slow, and like with no kind of haptic action to see if this satisfies the hypothesis, and if they can perform better and be more calm and more focused when they have this wearable. And this is like the test, how we've designed it with a sort of evaluations baseline and interview in the end. And this is some other research we're doing at the same time, is to see, okay, like we tried to the sleeve version, but like, is the sleeve the right garment? Should it be a jacket? Should it be like a shirt? Should it be something that is directly affecting and measuring breathing? And should it be an add-on on the garment? Should it be its own garment? There's a lot of like a whole design discussion. And in addition to that, there's this kind of material design opens up the exploration of different kind of garments, different type of products. And the idea of that we could have a future of affective matter just by trying to kind of program and our garments and the furniture to be biodynamic based on our needs to benefit our health. So with that, I'm gonna be happy to answer your questions, which I'm sure you have, and I hope you enjoyed the talk.
Thank you, Athena. That was a really great talk. Very interesting. So I think it's really, it was unexpected, right? We hear from architecture and you're telling us about, these wearable devices. It's a much different way of thinking about design, right? So how do you see the connection between those two fields?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I've been asked this question, and it's very reasonable to have it. So first, I mean, just to say that like I've been far from practice for many years. So like after being like in practice and really designing building, then I moved into kind of MIT, where I was doing more like a material and technology research, which was more interdisciplinary in a way. But then I was always driven, of course, by the and then I also worked with like designing smart materials. But I was always driven by this idea of like how we experience space and how space affects our emotions. Of course, the wearable is not space in the sense of a building, but for me, I think of it as a wearable environment, and I like to use this term because it's something that I don't want to call it like a device, because I see it as something that's dynamic, and it can affect like how we feel, and kind of in the same way that the weather changes and affects how you feel. Like what if, your clothes, and if you think about it, your clothes is kind of a micro environment. Is the, it's like the minimum architecture like you can have is your clothes. And also I'm driven of like, I'm really interested to have like a social impact and design for health. And through my experience that I've had with design, computing, and materials, I somehow like it sparked this, avenue. Like,
No, it's really neat. And I think like there's a lot of different ways of thinking about space. Like, you're talking about this emotional space, this circle where everyone explores different regions of it depending on how they're feeling, right? Or like, that's the same as like the sound space that that creature was experiencing, right? They go into different, they're seeing in the same physical space, but seeing it through a different sensory organ, right? I think that's a neat way of thinking about it. Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience, students or anyone?
I'm curious to see, like, if since you're from other disciplines, most of the students did what
Most of our students are biology students, so definitely.
So yeah, so then I would love your feedback, because you might like to give me useful feedback on how to work with a Benjamin is one second.
Benjamin, yes, I see. Go ahead. Well, I had a kind of maybe more technical questions. So, you're wearing these sleeves, right? And they the compression helps you, and it helps you feel more relaxed or more aroused as needed. Is there like a way? I mean, but you can't help notice you're wearing. Is there a way to maybe a way to say, okay, like a controls that don't know they're having this don't cognitively know that they're wearing something to regulate their emotions. They don't have like some expectation of an effect. Like, is there some way to have it be
Yeah.
like,
So no, that's a good question about the awareness.
Mhm.
So supposedly, but I cannot, prove so, but so this so it's not supposed to work because you think about it. It's supposed to work just because you synchronize yourself with
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Now, do you also gain awareness through the sensory feeling? Maybe.
Right.
Because I had people involved in doing these quizzes and this.
Mhm.
So you put your, when you do another task, you put your focus in the other task. So I think by
Yeah,
doing
I see what you mean.
test, but I haven't, I can't say I've proven it, but that's a principle I'm thinking of, that like you don't have to
Mhm.
think about it. And that's, I mean, I think that would be the benefit, as opposed to certain kind of like phone apps or so on, that like you have to think
Pay
something
attention
or
to it.
breathe
Yeah.
based on something that you see. So it's supposed to be kind of a subliminal or subconscious, actually. Subliminal might not be the right. I think we have
Yeah,
wait.
someone. Yeah, I'll yeah. So from Imtiaz, sorry. Do you think there could be any room for ethical concerns when reading or regulating others' emotions?
Yeah, of course. That's you guys have a very good question. That's like
Uh-huh.
a hot question, and yes, and I didn't show today the interpersonal version, because I always this one was not tested. I mean, I didn't test it with a study, but the idea of so first, let's say in the version that you regulate yourself, there's no ethical implication necessarily, because you can just do it as you wish and like as it suits yourself. Of course, if there's someone with a disability, like a very serious disability, and then they have the parent regulate, then we may ask ourselves, how is that different from taking medications or assigning medications to others? So if there's like a care-patient relationship. But of course, this needs like a regulatory, could use some regulatory mechanism if it was to be prescribed. And I think, because I think like it's not it's not the technology and itself, it's how you use it. And so like every device, that's why every device needs like a regulatory mechanism. Now, especially when it comes to kind of regulating others in terms of communication, because I also had this idea of like, you have two wearables, right? And you can kind of help regulate the other based on, so what if you had two wearables and one person can feel what the other person feels in their own wearable, kind of like a remote connection? This was the idea during COVID, right? Then it's even more like ask regulatory, like, it's like you feel even more that there needs to be this kind of regulatory setup. So the answer is yes, but hopefully if it's for treatment reason, a therapeutic reason, that's going to be in a way that's kind of helpful. And as every technology has a regulatory one.
Yeah, I mean that's a really neat idea. Or like you're communicating. We communicate on video here, but there's so many other aspects to it that like what they feel, what you feel, what I don't know, maybe what you smell, all those other senses that we have could be transmitted to someone else so that they could feel what you're thinking, right?
Yeah, and then you say, okay, so then it's like the always the topic of control. Do you control the other? But like that's like a whole discussion now with the AI and everything, and
Well,
like
we all try to
yeah,
control each other always when we're talking, right?
yeah.
Okay, well, great. Any final comments from the audience? Okay. Okay, well, if not, well, thank you again, Athena. Thank you for joining us today. Please join us again next time on April 25th when Professor Yusuf from Biological and Chemical Sciences will telling us about teaching and infographics. So take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and don't forget to check out our Canvas course for archives of previous talks you might have missed. Okay.
Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, ideas, feel free to email me. You can find my email on the website.
All right. Thank you, Athena.
Thank you.
Bye.